today's talk, Rise to Purpose. Are you frustrated by making lots of motion but no real significant progress? Do you find it a challenge to rise above your lower level expectations to a higher purpose reality? Are you ready to exit the zone of commonplaceness? Join me for the conversation, Rise to Purpose, and let's get ready to rise to a higher purpose living. Our Rise to Purpose mission for today is to call you out of places of settling for less than what God has purposed, calling you out of low lying fruit. You know, what's easy, your comfort zone mentality, that if it's something easy, then, yes, you're signing up for that. Want to call you out of lingering and low level desires and dreams and visions, just enough to get by, but nothing to stretch and to grow you. Our mission today is to try to put you in motion from places of stagnations where you may be dealing with disappointments, regrets, and retractions because of past mistakes or failed attempts to live your best life forward, to know your purpose, and to excel in that purpose. So I want to encourage you today just to have a rise to perfect mindset, to transform our mindset of settling for less and having a mindset that will rise to the purpose that God has created for us. Proverbs 16:9 tells us, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but it is the Lord who establishes their steps. Every day of our journey, you and I will always have a choice whether or not we will settle for what makes us most comfortable, that for which we feel more familiar with, versus stretching ourselves and going beyond that which we know, that which we can kind of do in our sleep, and trying to figure out what is the greater purpose, what is my reach that God has purpose for me to be able to make a difference, to be a difference maker. Our Rise to Purpose mindset says it takes knowing who you are and planning where you want to go and being confident and courageous enough to give your dreams and yourself permission to win. If you don't give yourself permission to win, no one else will. We have to have an inner knowing that we were purposed and designed to rise to the highest level of purpose that God has for us. And it starts with us giving ourselves permission to be in greater expectancy, but also to turn that expectancy into purposeful action steps. So how do we go from these places of having lowered our expectations to that higher purpose calling that God may have for our lives, whether it's our career, whether it's a higher purpose relationship, whatever that dream or vision or goal where you're like, there's got to be more than this. How do we go to the next level? Well, we just start. We start taking the first step and the next step and the next step after that. It's never a perfect time to start. You just have to start. If you are waiting for the perfect time, then you will remain stuck. You will remain paralyzed and stagnant. And most importantly, you will never come to the experiencing the realization of all that God has purposed. Maybe you thought that you were just supposed to be, and I'm just going to use this as an example. The examples that I'm using are not designed to classify something as a lesser important position or responsibility. And so let me use myself for an example. Maybe I thought at some point in time, and I really did think this, that I was just to be a small group Bible teacher. So I did small group Bible teachings at my church where we had 3 to 5, the most 10 people in the group. I had no idea, and I did that for years, but I had no idea that right around the corner from that God has actually purposed for me to be a part of a televised Bible study network. And so if I had just stopped with the small Bible group mentality and just comfort level and just close my mind to anything else above that or beyond that, I would not be where I'm at today. So I want to make it clear to you there's nothing wrong with being whatever it is that God has purposed you to be for, whatever season that He's purposed you to be. But we should always be open to the greater thing that God may have purposed, that next step after the next step. So let's look at the rise to purpose. And I'm calling this master's plan. And when I say master's plan, I mean the master's plan. And so the first rise to purpose mindset that I want you to think about is being ready. To be ready, and to be ready is just to be prepared, to embrace whatever unexpected opportunities that God may place on your path. Maybe that's being ready by taking a class. Maybe that's being ready by engaging a coach or a mentor. Maybe it's being ready by just intentionally doing things to get rid of the negativeness, the negative mindset that we allow to hold us captive, doing the things that no longer serves us well. So if you want to rise to purpose, the master's plan says you have to be ready. You have to prepare for that next level. The second part of the master's plan is to ignite. And I like to think of ignite as to just work up your faith, your inner knowing, so that you can go full speed in your God-inspired dreams and your visions. No more just, taking it easy. I'll get to it when I can. I was supposed to do this today, but I think I'll put it off for next week. No, we've got to work it up. It's not always easy to do the thing that God calls us to do, because if we are all just fully transparent, God's greater thing is never easy. It's not designed for it to be easy, because guess what? He's the person that's bringing it to fulfillment. Yeah, we get to walk it out. We have a responsibility and an ownership, but we have to ignite our faith. And I am reminding myself constantly, and I want to encourage you to do the same, that I walk by faith and not by sight. So when I'm feeling a little down in the dumps, so I feel overwhelmed about and push back, and I have to remember the thing that's right in front of me, that's not my real issue. My real issue is that if I don't push through, then I won't get to purpose. And so you have to just ignite your faith, ignite those inner, dreams and visions that you have so that you can rise to purpose. Thirdly, surpass. So when we think about surpass, we mean to exceed, to be the exception, to be the exception to the norm, to stop hanging out with the ordinary and think about the extraordinary things that you are capable of doing, the difference that you can make, what you can bring to the table, your unique gifts and talents, that extraordinariness that God has given you. Man, we always have plans. We have good plans, and that's why the word says we have our plan and God has a purpose. Man's best idea for your future, and we have to pursue God's greater purpose. Not only do you have ideas about your life and your life purpose and what you should be doing, I'm sure you have experienced other people trying to impose their expectations. Like, no, you can't do that. Or why would you want to do that? Or why isn't this good enough? Because God has purpose more. And fourth part of the master plan is expectations. And that is just having the hope of expectancy, the unexpected to be fulfilled by God's greater plan, His purpose, His promises, and His provision. His provision. If we just would say yes, guess what? His plan, His purpose, and His promises are all going to totally align themselves so that we can rise to the purpose for which He created. I want to just share with you some what I call rise inspirations. And these are just some quotes that I found when I was preparing for our conversation today. The first is from Maya Angelou, and she says, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better." And a lot of people would say, when you know better, you ought to do better. So it's like calling you out on it. Like, why walk around with all this new knowledge and new strategies and ways of doing things if we're not going to act on it? Yes, Marilyn, I agree. We have a plan and God has a purpose for us. And if we can just remember that, and maybe it's writing it down. And when you think about your plan, God gave us the intellectual ability to think, to plan, to have ideas, to have strategies. And what I like to do is jot them all down, whether it's on a sticky notes or wherever it's at. Sometimes it's whatever's close to me. It may be a dinner napkin, paper dinner napkin. But in my quiet time, I'm taking that back in prayer before God, and I'm letting Him help me sort it out. I'm also looking at, what does the word say about that? I want to make sure that what I'm planning is in alignment with the word. But only God can give us the full picture of whether or not your good plan, your good idea is in alignment with what He has purposed, with His timing, with the impact that He wants to make with it. Jesse Jackson says, if you fall behind, run faster. Never give up, never surrender, and rise up against the odds. And it's not even if you fall behind, it's when you fall behind, run faster. Never give up, never surrender, and rise against the odds. You are going to face opposition. You're going to run into some brick walls. That's just life. But you can still, like the scripture says, that you can run against the trees and you can leap over the walls. So when you're faced with a challenge and when you're faced with an obstacle, don't let that be the thing that paralyzes you. Let that thing be the thing that defines you. Let it define your faith. Let it define your perseverance, your endurance. Let it define your resiliency, that nevertheless, I'm going to go forward with this. If God has said it, He's going to bring it to pass. So guess what? I don't know what this little roadblock is. I don't know the purpose of this obstacle, but because God tells me, He works everything out for good, then I can look at the challenges. You can look at the obstacles that you may face in life, your life purpose journey, and it is a journey. Yes, you may know that you've been purposed for a particular career, to work in a particular industry, a ministry, the people that you've been called to serve. But it doesn't stop there. It does not stop there. I'm called to primarily serve women, but guess what? I have been serving female youth to senior citizen groups. In my mind, I had, this 35 to 40, 50-ish, 60-ish group, figuring that if you don't know your purpose by then, you're not going to know it. But God is like, I need you to back up a little bit. What you're discovering in the women that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and yes, even 70s, if some of that could be planted in the youth, in the female youth, guess what? They will have a head start to how their 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and even their 70s will unfold. So I've learned not to limit God. And I've learned to not necessarily tie myself down to what people think that, like, no, you got to find a niche and you need to be clear on that. And I agree. I agree. You cannot be all over the place. But when God says, I don't want you to just limit yourself to 40 plus age women, I want to step back and I want to raise a generation of youth, female youth, who can become the women that I purpose for when they reach the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. So one thing I want you to take home from this When you rise to purpose, the only elevation you need to really be concerned about is God. Let Him control the elevator buttons on your rise up so that you can stop at every level that He stopped and you can continue along the journey when He said it's time to go. So when we rise to purpose, we have to realize our circumstances, those challenges and obstacles and detours and distractions, they will always matter to us. They will impact you. And sometimes they will impact you in a great way. Sometimes they will make you just step back and question yourself. I've heard people say, I've had to step back, not only question themselves, but actually question God. Question whether or not God has really spoken, whether God is really leading, whether God is really guiding them on this. So we're going to face circumstances, but they are not to master us. And that's why we have the master's plan. It's why we have the master's plan for how we are to rise to purpose. So I want to share with you a real life journey for me about rising to purpose. I am 5 years into being retired from state government. I spent 30 and a half years in a leadership position at various levels of leadership. I didn't start off in leadership, started out as a supervisor, went to being a manager, went to being a director, went to being a bureau chief in a particular state agency. Well, one day I got called in to meet with my direct supervisor as well as the whole top level of executive staff for the entire agency. They had planned to do a reorganization, and the plan was for the person that I was currently reporting to, they wanted to split her responsibility and create a peer level position. So I'm listening to the conversation, but in the middle of the conversation, they offer me an alternative position. They wanted me to go from the position I was in to a same level position over a whole different area and scope of healthcare programming. I had zero interest in that level of programming. God, man had a plan. They wanted to say, we're going to delegate you to go over and be over this other area. We need you to take your leadership skills, how you can just take something from paper and bring it into reality, how you deal with personnel challenges. We need that over here. We're having some major morale issues, performance issues, PR issues. So we know that you're the person that can bring total transformation to this. So even as I'm listening, it really was in an area of healthcare industry that I had zero interest in whatsoever. So man had a plan. But as I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is not for me. This is not what God has purposed for me. So what they were offering to me would have been a simple sign the dotted line and you're over here. Well, I ended up saying to them that I have no interest in that, zero interest in that position. So then I turned around and said, so the promotional position that we were discussing earlier, are you telling me that there's no need for me to even apply for the position? Because, in certain agencies, I don't know about all companies, leadership has delegatory authority. So they could just say, starting Monday, Sheila, this is your new job. I'm telling you, I just knew inside that this was not for me. So I asked the question, are you telling me that I don't need to even apply for this competitive position that you're creating, which would have me be on a peer level with my current manager because you're going to place me over here? So, of course, legally, they couldn't say yes to that question because you can't pre-select people for a competitive position. Well, when the lawyers and everybody else that was in the room was kind of, moving around in their seats, I got a real, oh no, certainly you can apply for the position when it becomes available. So one of the things that I learned through that whole experience is that I walked away from the room saying, okay, no, before I left, I said, well, and I'm not suggesting anybody do this, okay? Can I have an opportunity to apply for another job outside the agency if you're going to delegate this to me? I have zero interest in this. I would appreciate the courtesy of being able to time to find another job. I said that to our executive leadership. Now, some of you may listen to that and go, well, Sheila, that was crazy. No, I'm just telling you, there are things when you open your mouth. God says there are times when you're going to open your mouth and He is just going to speak. And I, at the time, did not recognize that as a God move. I was just speaking out of my flesh and my frustrations with what man's plan was for me versus what I felt led was how my life was to be purposed. So I persisted in the conversation because I just didn't want to be handed something. I didn't want to be directed in a way that I did not need to go. So I was persistent in saying, I have no interest in this. And that's where I walked out the table, out of the room, pushed back from the table and walked out of the room, not in anger, but just resolved that, okay, it's time for me to find another job. So then I thought, okay, maybe God is telling me it's time for me to leave this place and go to another place. And this is my push out the door because I was in a place of comfort. I was in a place of commonplaceness, a place that was familiar, a place that had low-lying fruit. So I just persisted. I kept calm and I just tried to figure out where do I find my next job. This is something that God gave me the other day. I was just on Facebook and I called it She Persisted. No matter what the world threw at her, meaning me, it failed to stop her flow. Her flow is not of natural creativity, but of her supernatural creation. So my rise to purpose mindset transformation came at the moment where I was willing to say, this is not it, and to trust that God had a greater plan. And that's what I want to encourage you. You got to know. And how do you know? Through relationship, through being able to discern the inner leading and guidings of the Holy Spirit so that you don't step out there just based on your feelings or your emotions and end up flat on your face. But you know what? Even then, He can lift you up and help you rise to purpose. So man's plan was, we want to delegate you to another position of responsibility. My response, I have no interest in that. Can I please have another job? Pay attention to my limited mindset. I was limiting my mindset to just another job. I was throwing purpose all out the window. I was just thinking about, how do I keep employed? God's purpose is for us to embrace His destiny versus delegation. God's mindset is greater than our expectations. God's mindset is purpose. Let me tell you, that was on a Friday. Monday morning, I get called into the office to meet with the same set of players. I sit down and I hear the words, Sheila, we've made a decision. We are not going to post the position that the promotional position that we discussed. We are going to appoint you to the higher position. If you don't know that that's God, if you can't tell that that's God, man's plan was delegation. God's plan was divine appointment. The appointment came. I ended up saying yes to the appointment without contacting my husband, having no discussion, no nothing. Because at that time, I was a commuter for my job. This was a huge increase in responsibility. Humongous. It was going to be very time consuming. It was going to totally rearrange my schedule and my time commitment. But I sat in that moment and I could hardly contain myself, thinking man was trying to delegate a plan that they had. God put a knowing in my spirit that that plan was not His plan for me. Had no idea what His greater higher purpose was. But within 72 hours, You talking about rise to purpose? But it didn't come without its little road bumps. So, some more aspirations is that I want to ask you, can God trust you? I want you to ask yourself this question and just be real about it. Can God trust me to say no to man's plan, no matter how good it sounds, so that I can say yes to his greater purpose? That is what rise to purpose is. Rise to purpose is, yes, it looks good on paper, but that's not what God has purpose. Yes, it would create some great opportunities and rewards for me, but that's not what God has purpose. Within 72 hours, God unveiled his rise to purpose moment for me. Oprah Winfrey says there's no greater gift that you can give or receive than to honor your calling. It's why you were born and how you become most truly alive. Eric Thomas says, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you will be successful. Your purpose is, that's like our inner breath. It's like our life. It's like our existence. It's like our oxygen. I've heard someone said purpose is like our oxygen. There was an unknown quote that I saw online that says, get your hope up, get your faith up, look up, and get ready to rise up. I want you to be so inspired to rise to purpose, to know that you have to be ready, to know that you have to ignite your faith, to know, to just know that you have got to do everything that you need to do so that you can surpass not only your expectations, which are pale in compared to God's expectations and his promise, but that you can surpass all that for God's greater purpose. So let's look at what the word says and how it equips us to rise to purpose. And the first is to be ready. Ephesians 2:10 says, he creates each of us by Christ Jesus to join him in the work he does, the good work he has gotten ready for us to do, work we had better be doing. I like the Message version. The Message version doesn't play. He's like, there's no option about this. We had better be doing the work that God has purposed us to be. The master plan says we are to ignite our faith. 2 Timothy 1:6 tells us, this is why I remind you to fan into flame the gracious gift of God, that inner fire, the special endowment which is in you through the laying on of my hands. And this is Paul talking to Timothy in him carrying out his purpose. But it's the same word for us, that we have to fan into flame the gifts that God, the talents, the purpose that God has given us. Romans 13 says, be up and awake to what God is doing. We have to be alert and attentive to what God is doing. Otherwise, we will get so caught up into all the noise that's going in our ear, all the distractions, all the sound bites, all the trends that's out there. I have been being so committed to saying, I want to be where God is and doing what God is doing. And I want to encourage and challenge you to be about what God is doing. He gives us more than enough time to do the things that we enjoy doing, our habits and our hobbies and stuff. But at the end of the day, we need to be up to whatever God is doing. And the only way we can do that is that if we are awakened to rise to our purpose. Ephesians 3:20 helps us with surpassing our expectations. God can do anything, far more than you could ever imagine or guess or request in your wildest of dreams. He does it not by pushing us around, but by working within us, his spirit deeply and gently within us. He pushes us. He propels us to a greater mindset, to a greater expectations, to know that we are more than we could ever think. that we can become, because first of all, we're becoming like him. We're becoming like him. And then we're to raise up our expectations. And I talked about raising up our expectations to God's greater. I was able to say I have no interest in that, none, zero. I was making it clear to them. And I actually used the word zero because I was like, I can't really explain it. Now, let me tell you something. If God had said, they're speaking on my behalf, and whether you got interest in that or not, I have needs of you over here in this other area. I can tell you Sheila Mills would have been over there doing everything with the spirit of excellency for God. So I wouldn't have been over there pouting and angry. And I'm just telling you, if I landed there, that I know that God would have placed me there. Psalm 62:5 says, "For God alone my soul waits in silence, and I quietly submits to him, for my hope is from him." Sometimes you've just got to be in a quiet place. And you've just got to submit whatever your thoughts are, whatever your questions are, whatever your need for directions, for confirmation, for verification, for affirmation, whatever it is that you're needing. Sometimes we just have to push back from the noise, from all the well wishers, from all the motivational talks, from all the inspiring things that happens around us to keep us putting one foot in front of the other. And we just have to quietly submit and hear the master's plan so that we can rise to purpose. So we're in 2023. And as of today, we have 321 days left in the year. So I'm calling this Rise to Purpose, Purpose 321. I know that we tend to count down to the end of the year, but I am telling you that we have 321 days of expectancy for what not only the rest of this year will hold, but also to, by the grace and the purposes and the will of God, fully embrace what 2024 holds for us in the future. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "Only I, God, know the future and the plan that I have for you." So I don't need to be overly concerned about 2024, but these 321 days that are remaining in 2023, I challenge you to rise to the purpose that you know and that you understand, and that you rise above the expectations and the plans of what someone else has for you, and to surpass those expectations of even your own, what I call low level expectations of yourself. And let's go to the reality, the faith reality of what God says purpose. I like to say acknowledge reality, but choose faith. Acknowledge the reality of what's right there in front of you, but choose faith. There are 321 new opportunities that await you to live each day to your higher purpose destiny. And I hope that this rise to purpose, calling you out, is going to help you fire up and to ignite everything that God has planted in you so that you can be purpose for the 321 that remains in 2023. So where does this leave us? Where we are on the rise to purpose. That's where we are. We are on the rise to purpose. Me and you together on this journey. We're rising on purpose. We're shifting our conversations from what shoulda, woulda, coulda, might have been. We're declaring those things that be not as if they already are by faith. We are big time faith walking, not just faith talking. We're going all in and all up. We're taking faith to the highest level that God has purposed. So I want you to just begin today and just say aloud with me, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching it on replay. Don't just say it. Maybe you can type it in the comments. I am ready to ignite my faith, to surpass man's idea plan, and to expect God's greater purpose. In the comments, just say, I am ready to ignite my faith. If you can just say, I'm ready to ignite my faith, God will take care of the rest. Again, face reality, but let's choose purpose. I came up with the Rise to Purpose proclamation that I want you to also just say in whatever space you're in. So here we go. It's my time to rise. I'm ready to ignite my faith, surpass man's ideal plan for my life, and to expect God's greater purpose life to be fulfilled. Rise to Purpose is all about your trusting and believing God to fulfill His Jeremiah 29:11 promise for your life, that future and that hope that He predestined. So I hope that as you've looked at, how do I rise to purpose? How do I get ready? How do I ignite my faith? How do I surpass these man's idea plans for my life and even those plans for myself? And how do I expect God's greater? Simply begin with one step at a time and go from one level to the next level to the next level. And we do that in God's timing. I want to share with you an opportunity that's going to be coming up, and you will be hearing more about it. And we will actually be posting our registration information very, very soon on our Facebook page. And that is, we are launching for 2023 Soar on Purpose Women's Masterclass. And our Soar on Purpose Women's Masterclass is going to look at how do we strategize, how do we optimize, how do we activate, and how do we rise on purpose so that we can go from places of slow starts, stagnations, and setbacks to soaring on purpose and in the purpose for which we're designed. This is going to be designed to be we're doing it like 3-month cycle. So we're going to do March, April, May. We will do a 1-hour session once a month on Zoom. We're also going to have an exclusive Facebook group access that's associated with the masterclass where you can join women in community who have similar aspirations and we can support each other. As we're going through the once a month group sessions on Zoom, you will have the opportunity to schedule a one-on-one 15-minute coaching session with me where we can brainstorm your ideas. We can brainstorm whatever your priority is for how do you soar on purpose to become that higher purpose goals and visions that God has given you. And so I'm going to be encouraging you to schedule one of the 15 minutes at the beginning of our cycle, like in March, and then one of them at May, but you can kind of schedule them whenever you want to. You can, yeah. So I want you to just be on the lookout for information related to our Soar on Purpose Women's Masterclass. It's designed for, and I'm going to say women 40-ish up, but let me tell you something. If you see the promo and you just feel an inner flame being lit that you need to be a part of this, don't let age stop you because that is not written in stone. But we want to just work with a community of women who are being aspired to just live empowered on purpose, to just do the thing for 2023. So what we're going to offer is three-month cycles of showing up in a group Zoom sessions, offering you the one-on-one 15-minute sessions, offering you the exclusive Facebook group access, and just doing community together as women who desire to rise to the purpose for which we were created, and not only rise, but to soar, to surpass whatever our expectations are to becoming the purpose that God has created us for. So I hope that you will join us, that you will register and sign up for the Soar on Purpose Women's Master Class that's being hosted by Life Purpose by Design. We will also have phenomenal guest speakers And we're going to be doing some work. This will not just be you sitting around listening to people talk to you. We're going to do breakout sessions. We're going to do all sorts of stuff to make sure that you are engaged so that you can kind of reset things for 2023 and beyond. So I want to thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Sonia, and others who I'm able to see your comments. There may be others that I'm not able to see, but for everyone who's joined us live, thank you very much. Appreciate your support. Those who will be watching doing the replay, thank you very much for listening to the replay. So until next time, just thank you for joining us here at Life Purpose by Design. And I hope that you will find some way to connect with us so that you can live empowered on purpose. Be blessed.